Global leaders have reacted to two-week ceasefire agreement between United States and Iran, announced shortly before a deadline set by the US President Donald Trump for Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Trump agreed to the ceasefire less than 2 hours before his ultimatum expired. Earlier in the day, he had warned that a whole civilization will die tonight if Iran failed to meet US demands. The agreement marked a sudden shift towards de-escalation after heightened tensions. Pakistan played a mediating role in the breakthrough, with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Chief of Army Staff Field Marshal Asim Munir helping facilitate the ceasefire. Sharif later announced that the Iranian and the US delegations had been invited to Islamabad for talks scheduled on April 10. According to Trump, the deal was conditional upon Iran pausing its blockade of oil and gas supplies through the Strait of Hormuz, a strategic waterway that typically carries about 1/5 of global oil shipments. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Tehran would halt counterattacks and ensure safe passage through the strait if attacks against Iran stopped. Trump described the arrangement as a double-sided ceasefire, stating that U.S. military objectives had already been met and that negotiations towards long-term peace in the Middle East were progressing. In comments to AFP, he also said he believed China had encouraged Iran to enter negotiations and added that Iran's enriched uranium would be perfectly taken care of under the agreement. He further described the ceasefire as a total and complete victory for the United States. The White House echoed that position, with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt calling the ceasefire a victory achieved through military pressure that created leverage for negotiations and opened path towards a diplomatic solution. Iran's Supreme National Security Council also portrayed the agreement as a victory, saying Trump had accepted Iran's conditions for ending hostilities. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif welcomed what he described as an immediate ceasefire and praised both sides for demonstrating wisdom and constructive engagement. He expressed hope that the planned Islamabad talks would lead to a conclusive agreement and sustainable peace. Israel announced support for Trump's decision to suspend strikes against Iran for 2 weeks, provided Tehran reopens the Strait of Hormuz and stops attacks against the United States, Israel, and other countries in the region. A statement from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said Israel also backed U.S. efforts to ensure Iran no longer possesses what it described as a nuclear, missile, or terror threat. However, Israel clarified that the ceasefire does not include Lebanon, which became involved in the conflict after attacks by the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. At the United Nations, Secretary General Antonio Guterres welcomed the announcement. His spokesperson said the UN chief urged all parties to comply with international law and respect the ceasefire terms to help pave the way towards lasting and comprehensive peace in the Middle East. Iraq's foreign minister also welcomed the agreement, calling for serious and sustainable dialogue to address the root causes of dispute and strengthen mutual trust between the two countries. Egypt described the ceasefire as an important opportunity for negotiations, diplomacy, and constructive dialogue. The Egyptian foreign minister emphasized the need to halt military operations and respect for freedom of international navigation, while stating the talks should consider the legitimate security concerns of Gulf nations. Cairo added it would continue coordination efforts with Pakistan and Turkey to promote regional stability. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Minoru Kihara called the ceasefire a positive move, while Tokyo awaits a final agreement, saying de-escalation in the Middle East remains a top priority. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese welcomed the ceasefire as positive news and said Australia had long called for de-escalation, though he criticized Trump's earlier threat to destroy Iran's civilian infrastructure as inappropriate and concerning. New Zealand also welcomed the announcement, with Foreign Minister Winston Peters expressing gratitude to Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt for their diplomatic efforts, while noting that significant work remains to secure a lasting ceasefire. Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim supported the agreement and called for lasting peace, saying proposals aimed at ending the war should be translated into a comprehensive peace deal affecting the wider region. Kazakhstan Prime Minister Kassym-Jomart Tokayev welcomed the truce and praised Pakistan's mediation role. His office expressed hope that the agreement would provide long-lasting and contribute to global trade and economic prosperity. The United Kingdom's High Commissioner to Pakistan, Jane Marriott, also acknowledged Pakistan's diplomatic role, thanking the country for what she described as quite an effective efforts in achieving the ceasefire. Financial markets reacted quickly to the announcement. Oil prices fell below $100 per barrel, with Brent crude dropping more than 13% and US West Texas Intermediate falling over 14%. Meanwhile, Japan's Nikkei index surged more than 4.5% in early trading following news of a ceasefire and the planned reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.